Brother, I'm going, wanna wow Hulk Hogan. If all I get's a moment, I'll make sure it's an explosion. Cause lately I've been seeing stars, trying to kick out on this short course. But it's no holds barred, middle fingers like I'm Stone Cold.
Oh, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is WeTooDeep. We're back with another episode of the Slappin' Meat Wrestling Podcast. And as always, let's start with a little bit of housekeeping if you haven't been paying attention. October 1st, that's not next Tuesday, but the week after that, me and Wavy D will be live streaming NXT debut on the CW network, which is going to be a banger of a show. CM Punk, The Miz, 3 title matches going to be big. This is going to be a big show. I think Bianca and Jade are even going to be there. So you know, if you haven't watched NXT, tune in there. So again, October 1st. The show starts at 8 p.m. on the CW. We're probably gonna go live 5-10 minutes before the show starts to make sure we're live when it starts. But that link will be posted in the Discord. Also, going to remind you to get your WWE merchandise from the link in the description. That first link in the description is our affiliate link, and you click that link, purchase your products like you normally would, and a small percentage of the money purchased through that link will go towards the show. Outside of that, let's dive into wrestling. Not much else to talk about other than joining the Discord. That's where, we run the Thirsty Thursday vote, or excuse me, Thirsty Tuesday in our case. Thirsty Tuesday voting happens in the Discord, especially with this new bracket that me and Wavy D are about to do. If you didn't watch or listen to the show on Tuesday, essentially the new bracket's going to start on October the 8th. So what I want to do is I want to go through the bracket. We're going to have some time to spend doing the live stream and stuff like that. And I can't wait to see the random crazy shit Wavy D brings for us to talk about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if this dude says the word "hear me out" at all during that live stream, everyone just hold their breath because some crazy shit about to happen. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the Casual Wrestling YouTube show from the Nerdy D show on Wednesday. Go watch the end of that and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I can't wait for that live stream. It's going to be fun. But the plan with Thirsty Tuesday is I'm going to bring 16 pop culture celebrity icons, whether from sports, movies, so any type of celebrity, right? I'm going to bring 16. Wavy D going to bring 16. We're going to see who the Discord thinks has the better 16, right? In terms of so the first round is going to be like a WeTooDeep versus a Wavy D, right? And then when we get into the second round, we may end up having WeTooDeep versus WeTooDeep. There's a theoretical chance that all 16 of his women that he picks gets eliminated in the first round. I don't think that's going to happen. My list is already made. I know what I got, right? I'm waiting for him to send me his list. Once I have that, the bracket will be made. I'm hoping to maybe break down the competitors on next Tuesday's show. And then on the live stream we'll break down the bracket. And so that's going to be fun to talk about. But yeah, 2-hour live stream on Tuesday, October the 1st, as we watch NXT live on the stream. All right, let's talk about what I got written down today. We got, let's give a rundown of what we're going to talk about today, right? I got 4 topics. We're going to talk about this AEW TV deal. We're going to talk about the newly signed tag team to WWE. I'm going to go and review NXT. And then we're going to talk about the title of this podcast, my belief that Triple H has mishandled the Bloodline. And we're going to run into that, right? And so let's go back to the top. Let's talk about this new supposed AEW TV deal with the Warner Bros. It comes out. It's actually so the way the deal breaks down. It's 3 years, $170 million each year, with the option to add a 4th year at the same rate, right? So let's just talk about this, because I don't care that they got another TV deal. I'm happy they got another TV deal. Like, everyone always assumes that I'm going to sit here and shit talk AEW. Here's my problem, and here's what I want to discuss, because I'm happy they got one. They got what I thought that they were worth. And again, us casual fans are the fans that think from a business perspective, we're starting to be vindicated in what we were saying. Because for the last 6 months, AEW fans have been saying, oh, we're going to get $1 billion deal, right? The company's valued at $2 billion or whatever, right? We're going to get that $1 billion TV deal, and then it's done. AEW's going to take over. Guys, you barely got half of that, right? So in the 3 years that are guaranteed that you're going to be on the Warner Brothers, you got $510 million. It's a great amount of money for your company, but well below what you said you were going to get. Now, they're all saying, but wait a minute, we're shopping around Shockwave. We're going to FS1, right? So I saw something, I don't remember where I said it from or where I saw it from. I saw something that Fox Sports 1, Fox, is really only going to offer you probably $20 to $30 million a year for that show, right? So I don't care about the intricate details of this, right? I want to talk about what's been released, and then the money aspect, right? So let's just say they give you $30 million for Shockwave. You're only getting $200 million a year, and let's say the terms are the same, 3 years guaranteed. You're only getting $600 million when you promise me, oh, we're definitely getting $1 billion. The fans overhyped the show. Now what's the problem? Why did it take so long to get a deal? Why did it take so long? And why did Tony Khan eventually looks like he has to settle for what they're offering? Well, why is that? Well, the product's not necessarily the best. The attendance numbers are going down. The ticket sales outside of your pay-per-views tend to seem like they're going down. The viewership itself, right, seems like it's going down. And I think this is one of those things where, like, Warner Brothers wanted to keep AEW, but they definitely didn't want to overpay. And I've been saying there's no way they're comfortable getting, averaging 600 to 700,000 viewers a week. There's no way they're comfortable holding, if we were to rank shows, right? If we were to rank shows in terms of not viewership or not how good the product is, but sort of like the level of talent on the show. Like, you would have Raw, SmackDown, like 1A, 1B, right? Or 1 and 2, right? In whatever order you want to put them in. And then AEW technically would, Dynamite would be number 3. Collision would have to be 4 because they use the same roster. And then NXT, because it is more up and comers and no name value. Like if you're talking about like the value of a show, NXT would be number 5 because there isn't a lot of name recognition outside of the core, but there's a lot of other people that are being used there. And if you don't watch NXT, like there are people who watch Raw and SmackDown who don't watch NXT, who if they turned on NXT wouldn't know who an Obafemi or a Trick. I mean, they'll probably know Trick Williams, but you know they wouldn't know what an Obafemi or Carly Bright or a Lash Legend or an Aura Mensa. They wouldn't know those guys, right? And so, in terms of like name value of the roster, Collision would end up, or excuse me, Dynamite would end up being 3. Collision would end up probably, you would have to put them at 4, right? And so when you're carrying the 3rd most viewed like major brand, right, and you're barely beating the C brand on your competitions, you know, the company you're competing with, and whether or not they want to address it as competition, that's what it is. It's competing. Right, that's what business is, and so Warner Brothers, I'm certain, you know, and I'm not concerned with like this whole like 4th year option. I think that's something that Warner Brothers put in there, for their benefit. Hey, if after 3 years this show takes off and things get better, and the money we're giving you leads to a good show and ratings go up, we'll tack on a 4th year at the same rate. And Warner Brothers probably does it so that, you know, in 3 years, they don't have to pay more when they can get an extra year at the same rate, right? But also, I think it's also one of those things where, okay, after about a year and a half, 2 years, when you start going back in for these discussions about whether you're going to put in that option, if the show's still the same or if it's going downward on a downward stride, hey, man, at the end of these 3 years, we're done, right? So I'm not really concerned with it. I think it's a smart business move for Warner Brothers, especially since that they're losing the NBA, which I think is big for them, so that they keep some sort of big sports brand. I think they still have hockey, and I think they're picking up college football bowl games, I believe. But it's one of those things where like Warner Brothers Discovery, they need a big brand because no one's watching True TV, right? If you go to True TV, you're gonna watch like those prank shows on reruns, like Impractical Jokers, or there's a couple other like prank shows or stupid shows that they put on True TV. There's no big thing that Discovery Warner Brothers actually has to market. Like USA can now market The Anonymous. NBC has shows that they show on their normal shows. They have, you know, they have Monday Night Football, or is that ESPN? I don't actually remember, but right. And so they have all these things that NBC can market, right? Fox has shows that they can market. You know, CBS has shows that they can market. Warner Brothers really doesn't. And so AEW is their big brand that they could sort of say, this is exclusive to us. At least Dynamite's exclusive to us. Collision is going to be a part of that deal. And then what Rampage will be rebranded as Shockwave. And that's more than likely going to end up on FS1. And the problem with FS1 is that while, yes, it's technically Fox, FS1 isn't a guaranteed channel for all your fans to have. So you're not going to have the ratings, right? So, but also immediately Fox says, look, we're tired of this wrestling thing. We'll put this on FS1. We're not putting AEW in a place like we did with WWE, right? So that's interesting to me. So I'm happy they got a TV deal. I just have to sit over here and say, what happened to the $1 billion deal, right? Other news that I consider this a major win on paper, in theory. The Lucha Bros, Penta, and Ray Phoenix have apparently, allegedly, more than likely been confirmed that they're coming to WWE. On top of the fact that Motor City Machine Guns just signed, I think that that's a big W as well. This tag team division, on paper, could be a banger, and so Now, here's where I say on paper, because we know what WWE loves to do when they sign these lucha, the Hispanic lucha Mexican wrestlers, right? And the reason I didn't really want to say Mexican at first, I don't know if these two are Mexican, right? And so I didn't want to offend them in any way, right? Hispanic, that's the term that I like to use, right? These Hispanic wrestlers, what we tend to see WWE do with them is what they've done with Dragon Lee. You get a big star, you give them 2-3 months on their own, and then eventually they end up in the LWO. My fear is that the Lucha Bros end up in this Legado versus LWO storyline that's intertwined for the rest of eternity. And I don't want that to happen. The Lucha Bros are good by themselves. And see, this is why I was so upset when they broke up the Usos. Because the Usos versus the Lucha Bros would be a banging match. Right? And we'll talk about the Bloodline stuff here in a minute. But yeah, this is a big W for WWE. If only so AEW doesn't have it. But again, we're 5 years into this, and OGs of the company. Now, these aren't like the big guys, but this was 3 years ago, your top tag team in the company, and they've jumped ship. This was a tag team you really put a lot of focus on the first 3 years of your show, and they've jumped ship. Cody's jumped. Lucha Bros have now jumped. Like, there's part of me that believes like Kenny Omega, if he was a free agent, would consider WWE, right? And in return, there's been a rumor that Kevin Owens hasn't re-signed, and that he may jump to AEW. And I'm at the point of saying, have him. You can have Kevin Owens. That's fine. If you want Kevin Owens, you can have him. He's at the point in his career in WWE where I just don't see where they're going to put him in a place, right? That's, bigger than what he's at right now. He's a little bit older. He's done some things. There's a lot of talent coming up that I think could take his place. And So Kevin Owens, I'm fine with him leaving. I really am. But back to the Lucha Bros. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of them in terms of like they do the indie style. If they could tone that down, work a little bit more WWE style match where it's more storyline based and not like acrobatic, which the acrobat, and here's the thing, I'm not against the acrobats, but they have to be the only ones on the card. Because if they do it and then every other person on the card starts doing it, then it becomes too much, right? And so I like this. I like the signing. It's a big W. Apparently, they're coming straight to the main roster. Raw or SmackDown will be interesting. I imagine they'll be on SmackDown. What I imagine is going to happen starting in January is Raw's going to start and picking up the more storyline-based wrestling. It's going to be very storyline based. You probably won't see a lot of actual wrestling on Monday Night Raw. Being that it's on Netflix, I believe the idea with that show is going to be to tell a story. Because you're going to have such a wide audience that may see it for the first time that don't normally watch it, that you want it to be the story. So I do think at some point the Bloodline's going to move over to Raw. And I think in return, what I think could happen is Cody and the Bloodline swap over to Raw, and they send Gunther and Kaiser in them to SmackDown, in sort of some exchange starting in January. Whether it's a new draft, whether it's, a trade or some sort, right? But I think the Bloodline is moving over to Raw because it is so storyline based. And I think what SmackDown's going to end up becoming is that show for the hardcore fans, the wrestling based show. So I think Lucha Bros will go to SmackDown if that's the case. And so you'll get your hardcore wrestling on SmackDown, and I think Raw will end up becoming the more storyline, like telenovela type storyline, where it's sort of like Days of Our Lives with wrestling inserted, right? That's at least that's how I would do it, because Netflix is such a big area where if you could get people sort of into watching your story, that they sort of put up with the fighting part of it, the sort of, because the big critique about wrestling is two things. One, the acting sucks, which I think it's getting a lot better, right? And we're going to talk about this with NXT here in a minute. But that the acting sucks, in that, well, how do you guys watch fake fighting, right? If we can get them into putting up with fake fighting to where they like the story, I think we can get a large audience of casual, just typical Netflix viewership that has never watched wrestling before, never really considered it. And I think that needs to be the goal with the Netflix deal, is to try to bring in an audience that isn't already here. But let's talk about NXT. Bro, I'm tired of the blasphemy being spoken about NXT and the IWC. I saw this video, and basically in the comments, oh, the acting sucks. This is so cringe. NXT is so overrated. No, guys, calm down. Calm down. The problem is you're expecting a Hollywood level production. This is WWE, right? NXT is so good. Let me tell you again. I've said this a million times, but there's just I believe NXT is on a different level than any other show that's on TV in terms of in the wrestling genre, right? It's on a whole other level in terms of what they're doing on the show. So we start this episode, we try to get Ava's in the ring doing GM shit, like being the best GM in the company, right? Monday Night Raw, Adam Pearce is over there drinking himself to death because he can't control anything, right? You got monsters breaking through walls. You got Spirit Halloween characters running around murdering people. You got Drew and Punk trying to kill each other. Your main star, Gunther, doesn't want to fight the guy who challenged him. Raw's got some issues, and Adam Pearce just isn't the one to get the job done, right? We'll give him some, Wavy D try to give him some credit for at least starting to plan the card out ahead of time instead of making matches live on air. Okay, that's cool, but I'm glad he's doing that, but he needs to spend a little bit more time controlling his locker room, right? But then you go to SmackDown, and Nick Aldis only seems to want to put, the Bloodline on TV, and then Carmelo versus Andrade, and it's a little bit less drama going on in the locker room, but it's sort of the same copy paste repeat there for Nick Aldis, right? But then you got Ava down here doing GM shit. She running business. She bringing in Tyrese, and I know Tyrese has been on the main roster, but we got Tyrese. But see, NXT was able to get the whole Indiana Pacers in the front row. Raw didn't have that. SmackDown or whatever show Tyrese was on originally didn't have that. We had the whole Indiana Pacers front row in Orlando. Right? We're able to bring back, it was announced Sexy Red's coming back, right? Ava's doing GM shit. We're able to bring Punk down for an episode. Ava's the best GM in the business. She's got the locker room seemingly under control as much as you can. And she's managing so much, because so much happens on an NXT episode, right? So we start with this, trying to get this contract signed. Ethan Page doesn't do it. He puts Trick through a table. Segment's over. Right, it leads into some matches. When I do my reviews, I'm not breaking down match after match after match. I'm just talking overview through the night. You get let me actually pull up what happened, because my memory, like I said, when I watch the show, I watch it live and I try to experience it, but I'm not remembering every single thing that happens. And so you end up with the next couple matches happening. You got Lyra and Tatum versus Wendy Choo and Rosemary. Again, I'm happy Lyra's back down in NXT working with Tatum to finish the story. Tatum is great in the ring. She's gotten so much better. It's just crazy how they've transformed her into. Tatum actually was literally like the girl. If you were to watch NXT 2-3 years ago, Tatum actually was anytime that they were debuting a new person they were trying to book as big, Tatum Paxley would be the talent that had to suffer the squash, right? But now Tatum Paxley is my favorite thing on NXT Women's Division, maybe outside of like Sol Ruka, right? You end up getting that match. You get Punk that comes out and addresses the crowd and the debut of NXT on the CW, and Punk's cutting this promo about how he loves NXT, but then he gets interrupted by Roxanne, and Roxanne gives this promo talking about how 13-year-old her would be going crazy because Punk was like the person she looked up to in the business and was her favorite wrestler growing up. But then she says the line of something along the lines of, but now I know I should have been a Drew McIntyre fan, jab him right in the heart. Oh, and I like your wife more anyway, right? And goes off saying, you're only here because of to talk about Wendy Choo and all that, or excuse me, not Wendy Choo, Julia. You're only here to talk about Julia, and everyone only cares about Julia, but I'm the only one that matters here in this division, or something like that, right? And that's when Julia comes out. Julia's so good; they've managed her. She knows enough English to get her point across, but not enough that do like a 10-minute segment speaking back and forth, right? So she comes out, and all she really says is like, Roxanne, your time's running down, something like that, right? And so there was an announcement that was promised that Punk would eventually get to later in the night. This was a clever way. Like, I'm reading Bleacher Report's report on this, and they're saying like the problem with this segment was that CM Punk never got to his announcement. Well, that's the whole point. It's called a cliffhanger, right? It's something that keeps you watching the whole show, because Shawn Michaels knew. Okay, the fans that are here to watch CM Punk, they're probably only here for Punk. So first off, we're going to put 3 matches on in front of them. We're going to put Ashante the Adonis and Eddie Thorpe on here to get this story across. Very, very decent match. Very good for a TV style match. We're going to give you Tony D'Angelo and Hammerstone, which we're going to talk about Tony D here in a minute as a whole. And then we're going to give you, the tag match we already talked about. Then we'll give you Punk halfway through the show with the cliffhanger to continue to watch the show the second half of the episode, which gives you, Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander versus No Quarter Catch Crew, which on any PLE would be a banger of a match, right? Solid match here. Randy Orton announces that he's going to be fighting Javon Evans on September 8th. You already know what's going to fucking happen, right? Javon's going to try to get bouncy, and he's going to get countered with that RKO, right? Brooks Dingeon beats up Dion Lennox. A newcomer, Dion Lennox, beats him up. Him and Sean Spears are maybe, a team, right? Lola Vice versus JC Jane. This whole Fatal Influence thing is moving. I think my issue with the Fatal Influence is it just feels like a generic copy of what they've already done with the Toxic Attraction, and it's clicking, but it's taking time for me to like it, especially when you're going up against someone like Lola Vice, right? And then you get Jada Parker involved in it. Then we get to the end of the show. Tyrese Halliburton basically told Ava, I'm going to get this done for you. Give me the contract. I'll get it signed. He eventually does get it signed. And then he basically, they cut some promo there. Ethan's trying to say, hey, man, I gave you an out. You didn't have to do this. But the contract eventually gets signed. Tyree said, oh, and I forgot one thing. Cut them or play the music, right? And Punk comes back out. This is the surprise. This is why they keep you the whole show. And Punk says, essentially along the lines of, I'm going to be the special guest referee, right? And boom, makes his match big, gives you a reason to tune in because Punk's going to be involved in the show in some way, right? He's going to be the special guest referee in this title match, right? And what a show, right? But let's talk. So then we end with them like barking at each other, and then you get like the camera of them yelling, and then Punk's in the background like egging on the crowd to chant, "Let them fight." Bro, this is great, dog. This was a great ending. Right, this is a great way to end the show. But let's talk about my favorite segment of the night. It really added some drama to a storyline that I really didn't care about going into this. And that was the Tony D story. Right, the whole story so far is like he wants to be the one to beat Oba, but he got in the ring and he lost. And now he paid Hammerstone to try to knock him off, and Hammerstone lost. So he's in this match with Hammerstone because essentially what happened was he went to Hammerstone and said, when I pay you, you got to get a job done. And Hammerstone, or then he tells Hammerstone, go back to Ava's office, get a rematch, get it done. Hammerstone turns around and says, man, if you really want to beat him, why don't you get it done? Why don't you fight him? And then essentially Tony D says, okay, how about this? I'm going to just fight you. Right? And so Hammerstone versus Tony was supposed to be the match. The match starts. They start like, collar and elbow, lock up, running around the ring. Hammerstone's throwing him around the ring. And Tony D sort of rolls out. You think he's regrouping. And then he just walks out, takes the 10 count. And that's where the drama begins, right? And that part of the segment ends. We get some other stuff happens. And then we pick back up with Tony D with the family in the back talking, man, what's wrong with Tony? Tony walks in. Hey, man, are you hurt? No, I'm not hurt. Man, if you're not hurt, what is it? And so then Tony D says, man, I'm scared. Man, you want to know the fact? Damn it, I'm scared, right? And I shouldn't be. I'm afraid, right? And this just upped the level of like emotion. It got me hooked into this. Okay, Tony, where are we going? Why are you scared of? I mean, I can beat anyone here. I can't beat Oba. He's unbeatable. I can't do it. I can't win. Right? And that's where this part sort of ends. So then we're later in the show, and Tony D is out in I'm assuming like the parking lot, or it looks like he was actually in like the actual training area because there were all the rings in the performance center where they train. And so Miss Rizzo comes in and is like, Tony, man, like you're afraid, man. I'm afraid too, and there's nothing wrong with being afraid. And Tony's like, well, it is for me. And she basically goes in and says, look, you can believe what you want to believe. It doesn't matter what we believe. It doesn't matter what the family believes. It doesn't matter what the fans believe. It only matters what you believe, because you're the one that has to carry the fear inside of you. You're the one that has to believe in yourself. And this dialogue all felt familiar. Right. And then, so I'm sitting here. I watched this Wednesday night because I record with Wavy D on Tuesday night. Right. And so I'm sitting here Wednesday night. And then yesterday, Thursday, during the day, I'm scrolling along on Facebook or X. I don't remember exactly where it was. And I saw this video of they literally copied Rocky 3. And I knew it felt familiar. I couldn't put my finger on it. They copied Rocky 3. Now, I'm not saying copy in a bad way, right? Because first off, what's the stereotype with most Italians? A lot of Italians believe that they could be Rocky Balboa, that they live the right. And so this sort of plays out, right? But this also fits the storyline. Also, a lot of the millennial fan base that watches may not have had seen Rocky 3 or remembered Rocky 3, right? And so this is awesome. This is awesome that they mimic this story and this is what I'm talking about. Like, let's keep doing this, right? Let's keep doing this, right? I love it. I love this because this ultimately what this is going to set up. If they continue playing the Rocky trope here, if they continue playing the trope here, he's going to have to turn to an old nemesis. Right? Because you remember in Rocky 3, he had to go get help from Apollo. Right? And so I don't. Who is this going to be? Or is this going to be someone new? Where maybe they don't copy the story plot line for plot line, but maybe he has to go and get someone that's just as dangerous. Like part of me feels like this might lead to Moose versus Obafemi. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just the emotion, the drama, the story that gets told in NXT. That's what keeps me here. That's what keeps me like invested into NXT's product. They're the greatest thing on TV. You're not going to convince me otherwise because every week they prove me right. And yeah, it's wonderful. It's good. I love it. But let's move on to the main topic, and that is Triple H has mishandled the Bloodline. And I know this is a crazy assertion to make. But I think I have a justifiable reason for this assertion. So, Triple H really took over this story going into WrestleMania 39. WrestleMania 39 in what was it? That was LA, right? So Vince technically wasn't part of the company, but he tried to work his way back in. And I don't think Triple H was fully in charge of creative. While he was named like creative content officer, but while Vince sort of stepped down, right? But Vince was still in his ear, I believe. And we then get the news going into WrestleMania 39. Excuse me, that Endeavor was buying the company. They were going to merge. We get this news. We get all this news that Triple H is going to be fully in control. And I don't, and so up to following WrestleMania 39 is when I believe Triple H really took control of creative and had it fully to himself. And so he had to find a way to get Cody Rhodes from losing WrestleMania 39 to winning WrestleMania 40. and you had to build them up. You had to put them through these trials, hero's journey type thing, right? And that's fine. That's not where he messed up. Where he's really messed up, though, is immediately following that WrestleMania. What do we run into? We run into the Civil War bloodline, the bloodline Civil War, right? And this is where I believe he started fucking shit up. Like, once you get into family business, it has to stay family business. And so I 100% believe that the bloodline shit, at least through Roman Reigns, had to stay within the family. And then Roman Reigns is then also going to attend to Cody Rhodes later, right? But the mainstay bloodline story has to be within the bloodline, right? So while you're building Cody up, you have Roman preoccupied with bloodline shit, right? In the family. But now you have like brother versus brother and all this shit, and it's just crazy. It's just absolute madness. Right, you split up Jay and Jimmy. You have them turn and all this, but this is just a bunch of bullshit that didn't need to happen. Right. You eventually bring in like the Avengers to try to take on the bloodline, and all of that shit. But what really bothers me is this 2024 year, right? This is where I'm going to assert that he really fucked up the bloodline with this stupid ass story. Like when The Rock appeared, that's not a fuck up. That's a great way to enhance the story because it gets to the match that this ultimately needs to be at, which is Rock versus Roman. But that's where that should have stayed. And it's not solely Triple H's fault. This is the fans' fault as well. Right? We should have had Rock Roman at Mania 40. Right? Because that then allows for a solo turn or something. But let's just assume the booking leading up to WrestleMania 40 was fine. But for the most part, it was confusing why Rollins was a part of it and all the tag team shit and all that. That's fine. But how I would have had WrestleMania 40 in. Cody could still win the title. That's fine. But to have all of these, guys come in and you have The Rock and you have Cena and you have Seth and you have Taker and you have all of this, right? That was just a nostalgia push for WrestleMania that doesn't do anything for the story. You know what builds the story? Solo comes out to try to help Roman, or we assume he's coming to help Roman, and Roman then gets attacked by Solo, which cost him the title. Right? It is Bloodline rules, so there's no DQ. So he comes in and Roman's like, okay, do your thing to Cody, and Solo turns around and hits Roman with the spike. Then like a Samoan drop or something, like a dive off the top rope. Picks up Roman, hands him to Cody for 3 crossroads, and 1, 2, 3, Cody wins the title, and we're all left there stunned. Why the fuck did you do it? Right? So then you go into Backlash with maybe like Jimmy versus Solo. And that's where Solo introduces his bloodline. Right? And Solo then starts to go down the summer talking about how his bloodline's better than the other bloodline. And Solo knows he needs to protect himself, so he's bringing in new members all the time. So then he brings in an enforcer named Jacob Fatu to protect himself because he just committed treason against the king of the tribe. Right? And I've said this before. I don't quite think people understand the what treason truly means to tribal culture. In Roman culture, if you attempted a coup against the Caesar, you were put to death. You were executed. That was a capital offense, and you were executed. And in Roman times, that means you were crucified. It was gory. It was bloody. right? Capital offenses, especially against the emperor of the empire, especially against Caesar, right? So Brutus, the one who killed Julius Caesar, he's lucky he killed Julius Caesar. Because if Caesar survived that, Brutus and the rest of the gang that committed that coup, they would have been executed for treason, dude. And we used to have rules like that in America. I don't know if y'all know this, but when the founding fathers founded the country, treason was punishable by death. Actually, written in our laws today, that never changed. Treason could still be punishable by death. Right now, obviously, you're not going to kill off Solo Sikoa, but Roman's going to have to go after you if this was how you booked it, right? And this is how you should have booked it. Instead of and I get Roman wants vacation, so what you do is you have him attacked, but you have Paul Heyman sort of taking orders over the phone, directing Jim, and Jimmy's pissed off, and he's sort of by himself. So he goes and tries to recruit his brother to come back. And maybe they bring in, this is when you could have also brought in, Zilla or some of the other guys, right? Or Jimmy just is on a one-man mission to do it himself. And then you get to SummerSlam and you could have had Roman versus Solo at SummerSlam. Again, not for titles, but this is family shit because you just committed treason against the tribal chief. Right? Fighting for the Ula Fala is not a bad gig considering the title and the Ula Fala is a prop. They're the same thing. They're just there to give meaning to the match. Right? And so the SummerSlam match is a ultimate. We're fighting for who's tribal chief. Roman wins that match. Right? And so because Roman wins and he sort of has the Ula Fala, the new bloodline run away. And now they're in hiding. And maybe you ask, Solo all the time, why you do it? Why you do it? Why you do it? And then he eventually gets to the point in a build, I did it for The Rock. And The Rock comes back and he's sort of the actual leader of this faction. And he's the final boss. He's not the tribal chief of the new bloodline. He's the final boss. And The Rock comes in and, The Rock says, something along the lines of, what, we're going to do this, Roman. We're going to put your bloodline versus my bloodline in war games. So, and if you win that match, Roman, we'll acknowledge you again as our tribal chief. And we'll pay the price of our disobedience. But if we win, Roman, well, then we're 1-1. And there's only one way to figure out who the actual tribal chief, who actually is the leader of the family is. And that's at WrestleMania. The Rock versus Roman Reigns. The match the crowd really wants. And Roman, whoever wins that match. Right? So we get through War Games and Rock's team wins. Right? They bring in, God knows, maybe they bring in, Hikuleo and he's presented as a giant because he's literally like 7 foot tall. And he like maybe rips off the door of the cage and comes in and attacks and helps Rock's bloodline win, right? So we get to WrestleMania, and the stipulation there is Rock will, again, if Rock says, if I lose this match, Roman, you're the tribal chief. We'll acknowledge you as tribal chief. We'll bow the knee to you. But Roman, if we win, you must acknowledge us. And maybe we up the stakes a little bit and says, Roman, the loser of this match cannot wrestle again. They have to retire, right? Or I maybe not put that stipulation in there, but what you end up having is an ultimate coup where Roman comes out and he has Jay and he has Jimmy on his side, and then you have The Rock come out and he's got Solo, and he's got Jacob, and he's got the Tongans, all three of them, because now Hikuleo or Talatonga is now part of it. So there's so much over there. Maybe by this point, Zilla Fatu is involved with Roman's team, and he's out there. But what we ultimately have is Rock versus Roman in a Bloodline rules match, because that's how this match has to be settled. And then ultimately, what you have is, because there's no DQ, this is acceptable. You have the ultimate at two brute moment where Jimmy, Jay, Zilla, whoever's on Roman's team, make the business decision of turning on Roman. Roman loses to The Rock. The Rock then he gets the Ulafala, he puts it on. He then ends the show by grabbing the microphone and comes out and says, Roman, you've been exiled from the Bloodline. This is your typical New Japan shit, by the way, right? This is how New Japan runs factions and changes leaders. And it's actually very entertaining, right? But Rock sort of looks like he's the leader of this, and he's the final boss, right? And so he turns around and says, I'm the final boss. Solo, you're the new tribal chief. Hands the Ulafala to Solo. In 2025, Solo goes on a mission in the Rock, right? Now you have this Bloodline thing that's like NWO style deep with Solo, Jimmy, Jay, Zilla, Hikuleo, Jacob, the two other Tongans, right? So you got like 8 members with The Rock on the board being the final boss, saying that Jake, right? And The Rock could be on screen sort of in a way like a suit backstage where Nick Aldis tries to do something, Jacob or Solo, you have to defend this or whatever. Eventually Jacob or Solo, right? Because then that's where the next tension becomes, is Jacob and Solo. Because that's where the next tension becomes. Because Jacob's not going to want to play second fiddle. So that's where the next tension becomes. And Jacob starts trying to recruit Zilla and maybe some other, and maybe we get a split there. Because that's how these things ultimately end. That's how you continue these stories well past Roman Reigns. It's always there's always going to be a battle for who's in control of a group. And so you can transition power from Roman Reigns temporarily to The Rock, who immediately gives it to Solo. And so Solo becomes tribal chief, but Jacob is the powerhouse of the group. He's the best of the group, right? So he's going to want that spot. And so Solo then ends up having to fight Jacob. Jacob turns on Solo. That could be the next SummerSlam match, or you can wait till the next Mania. You could build Solo as tribal chief for 2-3 years and then have a turn happen, right? You don't have to do it immediately, but that's where the next thing becomes, right? But I would then run it where Solo wins the Universal title. Jacob's, United States champion. You have Tongaloa and Tama Tonga as tag team champions on the SmackDown ones. I don't know what they're called. And then like you have on Raw, you have Jimmy and Jay running as champions. You have Zilla running as like Intercontinental champion. Like let's have them have a period of time where every single piece of gold on Raw and SmackDown are on the Bloodline. And they're just dominating everything. But Jacob's not okay just being U.S. champion. And this is why I wish you could ultimately have the clause where if you're U.S. champion, you can cash in and get a world title match. If you're a mid-card champion, cash in and get a world title match. I wish you had that ability. in WWE. Right? So that's how I would have handled the Bloodline following WrestleMania 40, leading into WrestleMania 41, and then leading into the future. But instead, Triple H gives us super team again. We got Roman tagging with Cody. This makes no sense, dude. This makes no sense. It makes absolutely no fucking sense. And so Triple H gets handed this diamond storyline. And in the process of about a year has completely fucked it up to me. Where they should have gone and transition. It feels like Triple H just doesn't know what to do with it. And I'm sorry, it's not as good as as what it can be. Because they're running similar storylines. But this whole idea of like Cody and Roman tagging because they have a common threat in Solo, I'm just not a big fan of that. Because most people aren't gonna team up with someone who right. So but you also position Roman in the situation where like he's going after the title, or is he going after the Ulafala? And obviously he needs to go after the Ulafala. You're the tribal chief. You just had treason committed against you. You had a coup for your position in Solo. He took out your wise man. Family business needs to come first. So why is he tagging with Cody? He shouldn't even be intertwined with Cody. In fact, the reason I said that Solo should have won the title at SummerSlam was so that Cody could then try to win it back at Bad Blood, where Roman should have debuted at Bad Blood in the same way he debuted at SummerSlam. And that is, he debuts at the end of the match, spears Solo, looks at Cody, looks away, and then walks out the ring, and Cody's leaving Bad Blood again as champion, and all Roman should be focused on is Solo. But why is he focused on Cody? Why is he tagging with Cody? Why he shouldn't care about Cody. This is family shit. The bloodline needs to stay within the family now. There's enough going on with the members of the family that you can make it a good story without having to get Cody involved. But see, the issue is he doesn't have anyone else on the SmackDown roster to go after Cody. So he's sort of just sticking Cody in places that, right? I'm almost assuming that he's going to stick Seth Rollins in this feud at some point. Because the last time Cody and Roman came together, we inserted Seth Rollins in it for no fucking reason. I'm almost assuming that at War Games, it's going to be Team Avengers versus the Bloodline, and Cody's going to establish this ragtag team with him, Roman, probably bring in Kevin, probably bring in like Seth Rollins. Right? I don't get what's going on with it. And it's just complete mishandling of what may have been the greatest 3.5-year run in the company's history. It's now 4 years into it, and the last 6 months of it is just not beneficial to the long-term story. Right? And it sucks because Solo's doing a really good job. Right? But this could have easily just been Roman comes back to get his peace back and start family business, and he's got to serve some justice to Solo for attempting a coup. It should have been tribal warfare. Roman shouldn't care about the title. He cares about his position as the head of the table. That needs to be the story from here on out. We don't need him tagging with Cody. We don't need him involved in title pictures. The bloodline at this point is similar to sort of like the Wyatt Six, where titles don't really necessarily benefit the team anymore. Because it would hinder, the tag division on SmackDown's hindered because the bloodline has the titles, right? So I don't know. He just completely has mishandled this for me. But I want to thank y'all for listening. This has been another episode of the Slap and Meat Wrestling Podcast. As always, join the Discord. The link is in the description. Also, if you just wait a few more seconds for the intro, there will be a QR code for you to scan. But again, I do appreciate you. Buy your merch through the link. If you want WWE merch, through the link in the first link in the description. Again, that helps support the show. Join the Discord. be wonderful to have you guys have conversations. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thanks again. I will see you guys on Tuesday back here with Wavy D. You have a great rest of your week and a great weekend.
Brother, I'm going run a wild Hulk Hogan. If I like get some moment.